My name is Hannah and I'm a teacher from Twinkle. Thanks for joining me for daily reading. This is the 5th in a series of 10 videos where we're reading a story called Jaz Harper's Space Explorer. Each day we're reading a chapter of the story and then we're working on a reading skill. I'm going to be asking you some questions throughout the video, so if you'd like to write your answers down, you'll need a piece of paper. Or click on the link in the description below to download the activity pack. There's an activity sheet in there that you can type onto, or you could print it out. If you haven't been reading along with us, it's best to go back and watch one of the earlier videos to catch up. If you have been reading along, the first thing I'd like you to do is pause the video and think about or tell someone what you can remember about the story so far. Well done. In the story so far, we've met a girl called Jaz. Jaz and her mum have left Jaz's gran behind to live on Mars for 5 years. On Mars, the first colony of humans are beginning to live and work. On the spacecraft, which takes 4 months to reach Mars, Jaz makes a friend named Elijah and his sister Ellie Mae. Together they start to imagine what Mars school is going to be like, and they make up lots of games to entertain themselves. The book is filled with lots of useful documents to help the reader understand what life in 2060 might be like. These include newspaper articles, emails, and Jaz's diary. In an email to her Gran, Jaz explained what life on Mars was like, and Gran replied with a story about hypothermia. In her diary, Jaz then described life in the colony and is looking forward to her first day of Mars school. Today we're going to be reading Chapter 4. While we're reading, we're going to be talking about what the text looks like on the page and what this tells us. Chapter 4. Minor Emergencies. Sol 42, Mars year 57, 1:59 a.m. Dear Diary, it's the middle of the night, but I can't sleep. I'm too excited about starting Mars school. I've already tried to sneak out of the flat to visit Elijah, but when I got there, his door was locked. Since there are no web spectacles or phones on Mars, I couldn't even call him to let me in. Instead, I turned to go home. The corridors were deserted and the lights flickered dim blue. My footsteps echoed as I shivered down the hallways. It is only when you're alone, really, properly, everyone else is asleep alone, that you start to realize where you are. I was underground, on a strange planet, far away from my real home. I started to worry. What if the colony wasn't safe? What if there were aliens hiding just beyond the valley waiting to gobble us up? What if everyone else in the colony had mysteriously vanished and it was just me, alone with my echoing footsteps? I was so scared that when I got to the corner between Elijah's corridor and mine, I stopped. I was sure that I could hear deep, hissing breaths and strange slurping noises. Before I could stop it, my brain had conjured an alien, big and purple and oozing with one enormous eye. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run, but I was frozen to the spot. Then, a long way off, I heard a bang. I jumped and dashed around the bend and in through the front door. As soon as I got inside, I could hear Mum snoring, and I stopped being scared. I went straight to bed. I still don't feel tired, though. I've decided that if I don't get to sleep soon, I'm going to find my explorer hat and my warmest socks and go looking for the alien that I definitely heard. After all, explorers can't afford to be scared. They have to face their fears with courage and determination. Also, how cool would it be to be the first person ever to discover an alien on Mars the night before my first day of Mars school? I'd be a hero. There would probably be a celebration in my honor, with cake, and everyone would want to be my friend. The teacher would ask me to come to the front and teach a lesson about how to be a brave explorer. Then, in science, we'd write observations about the aliens' behavior, and in English, we'd write news reports to send to Earth, and... At the end of this paragraph, the author has finished the sentence with "and." Why do you think they've done this? Pause the video and write down what you think. Well done. After this paragraph, there's a new time. 7 a.m. What do you think this tells the reader? Pause the video and write down what you think. Ready? I think that Jaz might have fallen asleep, and she's carried on writing when she's woken up at 7 a.m. Let's find out. Oh no! It looks like I fell asleep in the middle of a sentence, and I can't remember what I was going to write. Not only that, but Mum says that I have ink on my face on my very first day of Mars school. This is so embarrassing. Sol 42, Mars Year 57, 5 p.m. Dear Diary, School was not at all like I had expected. I don't know how I'm going to survive on this planet if it carries on this way. First of all, the classroom was the most uninspiring room in the entire world. It had grey walls and grey desks and grey chairs and an actual old-fashioned interactive whiteboard. At first I thought the board was cool, like going back to Victorian times or something like that. But then I realised that the lessons were like Victorian lessons too. What was even more upsetting was the teacher. She's not a robot with a drawer in her belly for felt-tip pens and glue sticks. She's a human. She's called Ms. K. She wears a beige cardigan and tan trousers and a taupe shirt. She's very dull. There are 16 children in the class and they are all different ages. Ellie Mae sits at the little table at the front with the little children. The big table at the back is just for teenagers. Elijah and I are sat on the middle table. Letitia's been here the longest, said Miss K, pointing to the tall girl with ginger hair. She was sitting at the middle table too, but she looked a year or two older than me. I'm sure that she'll be happy to help while you're finding your feet. Elijah and I greeted everyone as we sat down. Some of them answered back, but Letitia didn't even smile. She just folded her arms and scowled. You've got writing on your face, did you know that? She asked me. I tried to explain that I'd been writing about aliens when I had fallen asleep, but she didn't care. You could have washed it off, couldn't you? She sneered. Letitia didn't seem like a very helpful person, whatever Miss K said. In our maths lesson, we didn't learn Martian maths. We just did ordinary maths using Earth numbers. Elijah said that the questions were too easy for him, but Miss K said that he had to do them anyway. In English, we read a bit of an Earth story, and then we answered questions in full sentences. I asked if we could read some Mars poetry in the next lesson. Miss K gave me a sharp look, like she wanted to pin me to my seat with her eyes. She just said, "Don't be ridiculous." I didn't mean to be ridiculous. I just wanted to know. The most exciting thing happened just before lunchtime. Suddenly, in the middle of checking that all Elijah's sentences had capital letters and full stops, which they did, of course, because Elijah is better at English than Shakespeare, an alarm went off. It was so loud that I wrapped my arms over my head. A red light that I hadn't noticed before flashed and lit up the room. I sprang from my seat, ready to run for the door. There was probably going to be an explosion, or an earthquake, or else a tentacled alien was rampaging through the corridors, or an army of Martians was advancing towards the colony. We had to equip ourselves. We had to fight. We had to flee. However, none of the other children seemed bothered. Miss K gestured at me to sit down. She looked at a message scrolling across an LED display behind her desk. Biolab cooler fault. Electrical eng to Biolab. Moments later, the siren stopped and the light went off. The lesson carried on, as if nothing had ever happened. Let's stop there. Look at the way that Jazz has written Biolab cooler fault. What two things has she done to make this text look different? Pause the video to write down your answer. Well done. Jazz has written this piece of text in all capital letters, and she's put it right in the middle of the page instead of starting at the edges. This makes the writing look more like the LED display that was behind the teacher's desk and makes it clear that it's not Jazz's own words. She's also been careful to make it stand out as someone else's writing by starting a new paragraph before it and after it. Let's keep reading. What was that about? I whispered. Why aren't we doing anything? Elijah frowned. Cooler fault, I continued. Surely Mars is cold enough already. And what's an electrical eng? Letitia rolled her eyes. It's short for electrical engineer. And we do need coolers, actually. The samples in the labs need to be kept at exactly the right temperature. You two obviously don't know anything about Mars. I do too, I objected. I got 99.8% on the Mars knowledge test, Elijah added. It was part of our training. And I've read 5.5 books about Martian rocks and minerals. The half was because I realised that the book was too easy. Letitia didn't seem at all interested in listening to us. The morning passed by very, very slowly. In a canteen at lunchtime, where they were serving lab-grown meatballs and mashed potato, I looked for Mum to ask what the alarm was about, but she was nowhere to be seen. Elijah's dad was eating at the next table, so we asked him instead. That's the minor emergency alarm. There was a fault in the biology laboratory, a broken cooling system. Your mum will be busy assessing the damage all day, I expect. In the afternoon we had a practical lesson. Organising the class, Ms. Kay announced that the little table would be going to the kitchen and the middle table would be going to the equipment room. The big table was staying in the classroom to do geography. Everyone on the middle table, including me and Elijah, stood up and headed for the classroom door. Our group left. Elijah dithered in the doorway. "Go on, Elijah," said Ms. Kay. "The others will show you where to go." As we walked down the corridors, Elijah was clearly moping. "I was looking forward to geography," he told me. "It's my favourite subject. Do you think they'll be doing field work on the surface of Mars?" Letitia laughed. "Haven't you ever done a geography lesson before? We don't do field work. We just read facts in textbooks. As if they'd let us kids go out onto the surface of Mars," she jeered. After that, Elijah looked really miserable. The equipment room was a long way away, down the long tunnels to the outside part of the colony. A stern man was waiting for us. He wore khaki all over as if he were in the army, and he had a very neat moustache. "Right, recruits, today I'll be showing you how to clean the spacesuits," he said. "Do we get to try them on?" I asked. "Maybe, if you get your work done quickly," said the man with a grin. Mars spacesuits aren't like the ones that we wore on the spacecraft. They're made of a blue, stretchy material, and when they're not being worn, they look like tiny wetsuits with hands and feet. There are big boots to wear on top, built to withstand the tough Mars landscape. The boots have thick soles and leather straps. The helmet is made of dark acrylic sheet and rounded, so it looks a bit like the head of an alien from one of those old movies. There's a network of speakers and microphones so that you can speak to other people and hear what they say back, just the same as if you weren't wearing an airtight suit. Each suit has an electronic pack that hangs over your shoulders and attaches at the front and back. It's really heavy, but it's also really important because it extracts oxygen from the Mars air and regulates your temperature. If it's really sunny, there's a silvery poncho thing that you can wear on top, which reflects the radiation and keeps your spacesuit from disintegrating. Somebody asked why the sunlight was more dangerous on Mars than Earth. After all, Mars is further away from the sun than Earth is. I told them what Mum had said about the atmosphere. Turns out that she was right. Mr. Moustache said that because there is less atmosphere here to protect us, the sun could do more damage. Even Elijah was impressed that I knew that. Our job was to maintain the suits. Elijah panicked and said that there was absolutely no way that we should be doing this job because Mars dust is toxic and we would be in danger. Mr. Moustache told us not to worry because the suits had already had their first clean and we were going to be given special masks and goggles to wear while we gave them their second clean. I can't think of anything that really needs 2 cleans, so I thought that the whole activity was a bit pointless. I wasn't going to say that, though, because I really wanted to be allowed to try one on. The first job that we had to do was brushing. We brushed the spacesuits clean of leftover particles of red Mars dust, including all the elbow and knee joints and spaces between the fingers. Then we dusted the helmets until they didn't have a single smudge on them. If we found anything that didn't look right, like cracked rubber or a loose wire, we had to tell Mr. Moustache straight away. He did tell us his real name, but I forgot it. "We always check the suits thoroughly before any mission, but the earlier we can spot problems, the sooner we can fix them," said Mr. Moustache, marking some cracked rubber that I'd spotted with yellow tape so that it could be mended later. We each cleaned 3 whole spacesuits. Once I'd got my last pair of space boots cleaning, I proudly presented them to Mr. Moustache. "May I try it on now?" He wriggled his moustache from side to side as he inspected my work. I held my breath. What if I'd left a smudge or a smear? After a moment, he smiled. "Excellent work, recruit. Now let's get you into that spacesuit." The spacesuits take ages to get on. The blue rubber isn't just skin tight, it's practically bone tight. My legs and arms and middle felt completely squashed and squeezed about. When I put on the space boots, the electronic box, and a silvery anti-radiation cape, I felt like a superhero. The last thing to go on was the helmet. I stood in the middle of the equipment room with my hands on my hips. Everyone gazed at me, probably really impressed. In my mind's eye, the silver cape flapped behind me on the Martian breeze. Then I heard a spluttering noise. I spun round to see Letitia stifling a giggle. "I'm sorry," she said, though I could tell that she wasn't really. "It's just, you look a bit like an insect." "Everyone looks strange in Mars suits, Letitia," said Mr. Moustache. "We'll all have to wear them if we want to go out rock collecting," said Elijah. At that, Letitia snorted. "Yeah, right. As if you will ever be allowed out of the colony." It was a shame because until then it had been a fun lesson. Now I'm dreading going back to Ms. K and having to spend another day with that meanie Letitia. That's the end of chapter 4. At the start of chapter 5, there are some emails between Jazz and her gran. Before watching the next video, have a read of these emails yourself. We'll be reading Jazz's diary extracts from chapter 5 next time. There are more questions and activities that you can do after watching this video. Just click the link in the description to download the activity pack. Join me next time where we'll be looking at how to compare two characters in the story. See you then.